Today, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway under the helm of Roger Penske made an unprecedented announcement in light of the recent pandemic. The Indianapolis 500 will be moved to August 23rd. And that's not the only bombshell that came out today. The very first NASCAR and IndyCar doubleheader will take place July 4th, with the GMR Grand Prix of Indianapolis as well as the NASCAR Xfinity Series taking place on Saturday, July 4th, and then Sunday, July 5th, the NASCAR Brickyard 400 will go off. And what a crazy world we're living in. Let me put a little bit of perspective into this. If you had told me just 2.5 weeks ago that this was going to happen, I would have laughed in your face. If you had told me that this was going to happen 2.5 weeks ago and that I was going to like it, I would have called you an absolute idiot. But here we are. This has happened. I've accepted it. And I actually really like what's happened here. In fact, if you go back to, one of the first videos where I was kind of talking about maybe what Roger Penske would do going forward in the kind of the stewardship of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I kind of looked at, kind of talk of a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader, and I said, well, where could you do it that would be really easy? Well, one of the places is the track that you own, which is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I thought the most logical thing, because you probably wouldn't be able to do the Brickyard 400 and the Indy 500 on the same weekend, especially since you have an Xfinity road course race now and you're going to have the track set up anyway, why not move the Grand Prix of Indianapolis to July and bring back a traditional month of May where the Indy cars just go around the oval? Now, what I didn't get out of this is the Indy cars on the track in May. But as a traditionalist, I look at this and I've got, it's happening in August, but I got the traditional month of May back. And there's also an oval track coming right after Indianapolis again. It's like Milwaukee all over again, like Milwaukee. So to me, as much bad news has been coming out the last couple of days, and I know we're still not out of this for a while anyway. But having something to look forward to, that's something I talked about in the very first video where I kind of talked about my personal feelings about all this. Having this to look forward to has just invigorated me so much. A couple other things have too, and I'll talk about those later in this video. But man, okay, so let's talk about some of the details here, because this is incredibly unprecedented. The Indianapolis 500, I think, should take precedent because it is the greatest spectacle in racing, the biggest race in the world. August 22nd, or August 23rd. So there will be a month of May, but it will be truncated. Looking at the press release, now this is kind of weird because they're doing one less day of practice before qualifying. So rather than starting on Tuesday, which they have the last couple of years, they're going to start on Wednesday. So it's going to be 3 full days of practice. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm wrong. The practice is starting on Wednesday. I'm all confused. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday, of course, will be Fast Friday when they turn the boost up. Then you're going to have the traditional 2 days of qualifying, or at least traditional for them in the modern sense, where you're going to have Saturday and Sunday qualifying on the 14th and 15th of August. Now, they detailed in the press release that those are going to be broadcast on Network NBC, apparently like the entire days, because they kind of claimed that, hey, there's going to be more network TV coverage of the qualifying than has been in a very long time. So from that perspective, great all around, except for the lack of practice days. Obviously, again, I'm a traditionalist, so I want to see as many practice days as possible. But I understand because of the way things are right now, there's going to be a truncated schedule, and it saves the team's money. It saves the team's man hours to reduce the practice. If they go back to next year and it's the totally same deal where you have an entire week of practice, I assume that's where it's going to go back to. That'll be fine. Now, this is kind of where things get totally different. So apparently on the Thursday before the race, so this is after qualifying, there was no mention of a Monday practice session. So it sounds like there's going to be minimal practice time, which could, again, when you're talking about qualifying, could lead to some pretty big superstars getting bumped from the field if they can't sort out their setups. The Thursday before the race is going to be a pit stop practice. Now, they used to do this on the road courses, I think they still do, where the cars go out and take, kind of a semi-hot lap, and they come into the pits and do pit stop practice where they just come into the pits, and of course the teams are able to practice their pit stops. Now, the question I would have would be, is this replacing the traditional carb day practice, or is this an additional practice just to hopefully get the teams acclimated to the 500 miles ahead? I don't know, because I couldn't see anything in the press release, and I could have just misread it and missed it. It seems like carb day, the only true track activity that's going to happen then, which is the 21st, Friday the 21st, will be the Freedom 100, the Indy Lights race. And then there was a mention of an expanded pit stop competition. Don't know what that means. Does that mean all the cars? And to me, again, once you've seen the pit stop competition, to me, it's not very interesting. I don't really care much about it. I mean, it's cool for the crews, no doubt about it. They get some national TV time. I'm not, kind of poo-pooing that. It's not totally interesting to me, so it's going to be definitely disappointing if we end up losing, at least for this year, the final practice session on carb day for the Indy 500. And then, of course, the race itself is going to take place on the 23rd. The 22nd is usually a media day and kind of just a fun day where everybody kind of relaxes right before the race gets going. So I do want to kind of put a little bit more perspective into this, because I think it's ironic, and maybe it's the universe telling us a little something, is that when Tony Holman, the owner who saved the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, bought the Speedway, it was in a very bad state, totally dilapidated from not being used for 4 years during World War II. Holman inherited something that was very, very, touchy. Is this going to be able to come back stronger than ever? Is this going to be anywhere near what it used to be? Well, it turned out Tony Holman was a very good businessman and a very good steward of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and of course, it grew to gargantuan proportions under his rule. So it's just kind of funny that, and I even brought this up in St. Pete when I was at the track and all this was going on. I said, this is one of the biggest happenings in our lifetime, and certainly the biggest that the human race has faced since World War II. And it's just kind of funny how Tony Holman saw the Indianapolis Motor Speedway out of World War II, and now Roger Penske, the guy who bought it from Tony Holman's family, is going to see it out of this crisis. It's like the thing that Donald Davidson is going to talk about. It's like that's going to be his little anecdote. It's like, Roger Penske took it over when it was in a crisis, and that's just the same thing that happened with Tony Holman. So I think it's just, again, it's something to look forward to. I can't wait till August to give you guys the Indy 500 month coverage that I always provide to you. It's going to be hot. That's going to be the thing that's going to be a lot different. I will definitely remember sunscreen, that's for sure, because the entire month is going to, it's going to be weird because it's probably going to get, my guess is, again, I lived in Indiana for like 20 years. So generally the summer goes from hotter to cooler, obviously, as you start getting towards the fall. So this could be the first month of May where the first day of practice is significantly hotter than race day. I wonder what that's going to do to the setups. Now I guess we should talk about the IndyCar schedule itself, because that changed significantly, and there's a couple of key points that I want to talk about before I talk about the elephant in the room, which is the doubleheader between IndyCar and NASCAR. So the IndyCar schedule, the revised schedule for this year, came out today as well, and you're probably seeing it on the screen right now. But I want to talk about a couple of key points on this schedule that I think are really interesting. First thing, it's pretty obvious that the season will start in the month of May and not in Indianapolis. It'll start with the duels in Detroit, which will be crazy because that's an IMSA doubleheader too. So that means yours truly will definitely be there to cover those two races for sure, especially because I was going to go to the season opener for IndyCar anyway, and that didn't end up happening. Stay tuned. There's an asterisk next to that. I did want to talk about Gateway being just after the Indianapolis 500. I mentioned that earlier. I really love that for two reasons. Number one, that's traditional. There used to be a short oval the week after the Indianapolis 500 for years and years at the Milwaukee Mile. And looking at the fan support with Gateway or Worldwide Technologies at Gateway or whatever they call it now, That's going to be such a fantastic event. I think fans are really going to love it. And I think many fans are probably going to plan, a 2-week consecutive IndyCar fun fest where they're going to go to 2 races. And again, that was just how it used to be with Milwaukee. And to be honest with you, again, we're going to go out in the weeds a little bit there. Hey, maybe you think about moving Detroit around a little bit for next year. So maybe you can move Gateway up if this is really a rousing success. And have Gateway be the race right after the Indianapolis 500. I certainly think it deserves that slot based on the amount of promotion. In fact, I'm racing in an iRace that's sponsored by Gateway this weekend. So think about that, just how much they have committed to the sport. And then finally, this is huge news. The season finale is planned on being contested at St. Petersburg. Now, this is just... And I don't know who to thank for this. I'm going to assume it's Penske, so I'm going to say Roger Penske on this one. Roger Penske, this is fantastically done because there was a lot of hurt feelings, rightfully so from the fans, by the way, absolutely justified, because St. Petersburg was unable to give refunds to the people who showed up to watch the race at St. Pete. That was BS. But you know what? This is a great solution. Obviously not everybody is going to be able to come back for the fall St. Pete race. But being able to give the city of St. Petersburg, being able to give those fans who I'm sure their tickets will be valid, to give them the IndyCar Championship race, a significant race, an important race, one that's going to get a lot of media and fan attention, I think that is a great solution because the fans are going to get a great show there, an exciting show. And again, it doesn't make up for the fact that everybody got screwed over, a couple weeks ago in St. Pete. But it definitely goes a long way, in my opinion, in healing those wounds. And it's great as well because it's a street circuit. And I was so worried, and I still am about Long Beach. I was so worried about the street circuits. I didn't know what the commitment level was going to be like if they missed a year. They haven't missed a year here. St. Petersburg is planning on coming back even though they don't have a date. I hope they get that date. I hope they get that slot. And I hope the fans that got screwed will get to see a race and see an absolute barn. I can't imagine, the season opener is usually pretty crazy at St. Petersburg. I can't believe what it would be like when you got a championship on the line. Again, totally excited about that. And finally, just the unprecedented nature of this just blows my mind. We have a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader. My God, it's frozen over in hell right now. This is just insane to me that this is happening. And again, it's so weird because I predicted this. I thought, maybe because the Indianapolis 500, believe it or not, in the middle of this decade last decade was suffering for attendance outside of the Indianapolis 500. Even the Indy 500 was suffering. So one of the solutions that they came up with was to do a road course race with the Indy cars to try to drum up a little bit more revenue, a little bit more interest, and try to get everybody talking about it before the month of May actually kicked off proper for the 500. Well, the Indy 500, in my opinion, doesn't need that help anymore. It has become the international event that it used to be. You look at the Indy 500, and even though it's delayed this year, and again, rightfully so, because I think delaying it will allow all these international teams to be able to make it to the 500 when maybe they wouldn't have been able to in May. Not only does it do that, it can have that effect, the GP, can have that effect on the Brickyard 400, which has suffered so badly with attendance. And if you look at Roger Penske's goals and listen to his press conferences, listen to what he's had to say, one of his major goals has been to elevate the level of the Brickyard 400. Well, how do you do that in Indianapolis where the fans have kind of been dissuaded from caring about NASCAR, to be completely frank and honest? Well, you add an IndyCar race, and it's just it's unbelievable. So that crowd's going to be huge. And there's a rumor that Tony Stewart could do the IndyCar race, the Xfinity race, and the Cup race, which is just like, oh my God, if that happened, it's like, just think about that. And he could probably do the dirt race too if that happens on that same weekend. He could do 4 races if he wanted to. And it's just, what strange times I can't believe this is happening. And I know I just got off the Skype call with a couple of NASCAR YouTubers, and I'll just say this: we're planning some big things. Obviously, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I don't think it's going to be the only time this ever happens. In fact, again, if I'm a betting man, the GP stays in July with the Indianapolis with the Brickyard 400. I think that this will be an overwhelming success. Pandemic aside, if this was happening in a regular year, this would be huge. Now this is going to be like some sort of healing deal for racing fans, and everybody's going to come together. I mean, this is just this is the thing that I kind of guess I want to end on talking about this. Roger Penske was always going to look for opportunities. He was always going to want to shake things up. And if you look at this pandemic as, you can look at it as a doomer. You can say, oh my God, all the sponsorship money is going to be gone. Racing is dead. Or it seems like Roger Penske's done the opposite here. He has gone, okay, what's the opportunity? What can we push through? What sort of things can we try that we wouldn't have been able to under normal circumstances? And we're starting to see that. And I think it may mean that the fans, maybe are a little more open to some different things being tried. I'm not saying locked in spots. I certainly don't think that's a good idea. But it almost looks like Roger Penske's kind of restoring some of the traditionalism to the Indianapolis 500. I mean, it would have been very easy to move the Indy GP into August and just have that do the lead-in, essentially do the month of May and August. That's not what he's done. He's put together the old month of May in August and moved the Indy GP to July. I mean, this is unbelievable. I cannot state that enough, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, it's going to be a busy freaking year, and I don't know how I'm going to schedule IMSA, NASCAR, and IndyCar races plus anything else that I'm going to cover this year. But it's an exciting challenge that I'm going to face, and again, I'm looking forward to it. A couple other things I'm looking forward to I want to say before I leave you is that the content coming is this. So I'm participating in Elite IndyCar's Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway Race. That's a mouthful and a half. It's a pro invitational race, but somehow this AM got an invitation in the pro division. So I will be racing drivers like Josh Bilicki, Santino Ferrucci, Colton Herta, and Alexander Rossi. And Ron Capps. I was racing them literally an hour ago on an iRacing thing. It's unbelievable. So 2 days of streaming this weekend. I'm going to do a Patreon-only stream where we're going to run in traffic. I'm going to get some testing miles, and it's a great way, again, to kind of fulfill some of the Patreon obligations I have. I know a lot of people have been wanting to race iRacing with me. This is a great opportunity. So get your IR18 and your Gateway track downloaded. I should have the times ready to go on Friday, and then, which is tomorrow, of course. And then on Sunday, it's the race itself. I haven't announced who I'm going to have in the booth yet, but I'll just put it this way. I'm going to be streaming my onboard with a couple of the drivers who are also going to be participating in the race. I'll put it that way and leave it at that, at least for now, until I've got them absolutely nailed down and confirmed. But it should be entertaining, even if you do not care about watching my onboard. And if you do care about just watching the race and watching the proper pro drivers racing and then lapping me every 10 or so laps, check out the Speed 51 stream, because they're going to have IndyCar radio guys Nick Yeoman, Jake Query, and Rob Howden doing the commentary for that. So yeah, the IndyCar radio guys are going to say my name in a starting grid. Oh, so I'm excited. Oh, historical content. So I do have a historical video coming out. I will announce that right now. It is a video called Indy 500, the 2010s, which I think may be one of the greatest decades in the history of the Indianapolis 500, and we just had it. So that'll be a retrospective and review of the entire 2010s. I have that script written, or almost written. I've got a couple more years to write. I will have that voice recorded and then edited, hopefully on Monday, but it might be later next week. It depends how some of the sim racing stuff, or how much of this time, or how much time the sim racing stuff takes me this weekend. So that's everything. What a weird day. But at the very least, the weirdness is coming from a positive place, and I can't wait to talk about more of this stuff, and I can't wait to cover some of these crazy-ass events that are going to be happening over the course of the rest of this year. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Thank you guys to the Patreon supporters. You guys have really added some stability to my life in obviously uncertain times, so I really appreciate that. We will see you in the next video where I'm going to be racing at Gateway in iRacing. I'm going to get lapped about 10 times by Alexander Rossi. We'll see you there.